end of basketball and the end of all these college sports and getting in to the football season, having a fun baseball team to watch can really make your summer fly by, right? Because you're looking forward to those games. Hey, man, Braves are going to play the Mets on a Tuesday or something like that. Hey, that's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. You're watching the division standings and all those kind of things, and it keeps your interest. There's nothing worse than being an apathetic fan, right? And you heard my buddy say it a minute ago, I'm going to watch them, but I don't have much hope in them. And that's the point they never want to get to, that I think, unfortunately, the Braves have gotten to. And it's one of those things, by the way, I brought this stat up earlier when I was talking to our guy, Joe Machika. You never want to be tied with the the White Sox in any statistical category in Major League Baseball with the current state the White Sox are in. Right now, the Braves are tied with the White Sox for the second most losses in one-run games with 16. The Boston Red Sox, the only team with more, at 17. And that's just not fun to watch because you go into those games with a pessimism, right? And I would imagine, you can weigh in if you want, 803-404-6100. I imagine there have been plenty of years. There have been South Carolina teams, not just football. I mean, specifically, you can look at baseball and basketball this year, where you're going into those games with pessimism, right? Knowing that they're not going to win, knowing they're going to find some way to blow it. Again, when similar to the Braves, when South Carolina blew that game at A&M, did they give up 7 runs in the 9th inning of that? It all kind of runs together at this point, but you've seen those similar type of things, and that's the worst point, I think, to be at as a fan is apathy. And we go back to, again, kind of talking about the baseball program here with Coach Maneri, is just having people not caring, right? And you saw it with the lack of turnout at Founders Park towards the end of the season, particularly in big series like LSU, where there were more Tiger fans over at Founders Park than the Gamecock fans. And that's embarrassing for a program that is as storied and proud as South Carolina is when it comes to baseball, to getting outnumbered by a rival fan base in your own ballpark. That's something you absolutely never want to have happen. But if you're not giving people enough reason to believe in what you're doing, then that apathy is going to set in, and they're either going to not show up at all or just stop supporting you in general. You know what I mean? And again, I don't think the just not supporting in general has kicked in, but, and again, we're looping this into Gamecock sports as of right now. If you can't go out there and show them something better and something different next season, talking about baseball and basketball here, because this basketball season was rough. Men's basketball, that is. Obviously, women made it all the way to the national championship, but we got to the point in the men's basketball season where, yeah, you might be watching the game, but you're not watching it intently. You got it on the TV in the background while you're cooking dinner or doing chores or something along those lines. And, hey, if somebody makes a great shot, maybe you look up and say, oh, okay, well, maybe we got something here. But you just didn't have that belief going into any games that they're going to be able to pull out the wins. And, again, when you're not playing for anything in the postseason, it almost kind of seems and becomes pointless. And as we navigate along with the Braves as we go through the back half of the summer after the All-Star break, if they're continuing to lose, by the way, 7 games under 500 right now, which is exactly how they started the season and had done a really good job of working their way past that to get over 500. They're now right back to 0 again, essentially, and 11 games back in the division. Like it's not looking up for the Braves. And if you're a Braves fan, I'm sorry, it's going to be a long off season or long rest of the season if you choose to continue to watch them. But again, I see a lot of similarities in what Braves fans are feeling right now compared to what we had here at South Carolina with, again, the respective teams of baseball and, men's basketball. And again, there have been plenty of years in the past with footballs that way. Obviously, 2020, when Muschamp gets fired, where you go into a lot of those games knowing, like, all right, how many points we're going to get beat by this time? How bad is this going to be? How embarrassing is this going to be for our school and for our team? And that's a point that you obviously never, ever want to get yourself to. But, again, Braves fans kind of seem to be in that hole as of right now. We'll come back. We will wrap up hour number 1 of the halftime show. Hit your Firehouse sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100 as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Captain Dave. Jack will be back in a minute. He's got some Gamecock Central business that he's dealing with, but we'll get him back here in just a few. It's your halftime show on your Friday on the Game. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Velcher with you on your Friday here on The Game. Football, more football coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. But it's time for our Firehouse Subs text of the hour at 803-404-6100. And this goes back to the conversation we had back in the 9 o'clock hour where I asked if there were anything in movies that bothered you that are, I guess, cliches or things that happen frequently. David weighed in back then, but we're going to bring it up now. Says, I can't stand action movies where the people shoot 27 bullets out of a revolver without reloading.
I agree. That's a good one. I think that's so. How many can you typically shoot out of?
Dave, do you know how many bullets are in an old school revolver?
Usually 6.
6, okay.
20. So we're talking like triple.
But like I know what they're talking about, and maybe not necessarily like the old school revolver, but you know the short pistols that have a small clip, and they're just unloading endlessly without ever reloading. Like, because again, for continuity's sake, it wouldn't make an action sequence look good in a lot of ways. Like, all right, shoot this. Okay, well, give me like 5 seconds to put this new clip back in. And they just keep going, keep going, keep going. So I'm right there with you. I think that is something that gets grossly overlooked in action movies.
Oh, yeah. There's so many different things, especially in action movies, that definitely get overlooked.
Also, the like constantly shooting but missing. Mm-hmm. Like, there's some movies where it's like, okay, I get it. He's the hero. I get it. He's not supposed to die in the movie. But some of these situations he's gotten himself out of are ridiculous, right?
You know what's I'm glad you brought that up. You know what's probably the most ridiculous one?
Sure.
In Star Wars, every time, the stormtroopers.
Oh, they can't hit anything to save their lives.
In the original trilogy, they just cannot shoot. Their aim is awful.
Yeah, that's the running joke is that they miss everything.
Yeah, so it's like, you see, like in New Hope, like the original Star Wars, you see Han Solo running up to all those stormtroopers, and they're just missing him. And it's just like, that's just not. Obviously, it's just a movie, so it's not realistic. But I mean, it's kind of comical how bad the aim of the stormtroopers was.
We've got some people going with this. Jim weighs in and says, I don't know if you've ever been punched, but you really can't come back from a really hard hit quick enough to react when 3 or 4 more punches of your own actions. Movies are crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at Rocky as a perfect example. I mean, do you think he'd be able to actually go 15 rounds with the amount of hits that Apollo Creed landed on him? I don't think so. Especially Rocky 2.
Yeah.
Rocky 2, both those guys should not have been able to throw a punch by later rounds,
sure.
Honestly.
Paul the Cynic says there doesn't have to be a love story in every single movie. I agree with that. I feel like sometimes love angles get forced into movies that don't need them.
You know which movie recently did a pretty good job? I was kind of surprised there was no love story in it. Twisters.
Really? I thought
when it came out. So
what's that dude's name? That's the main character.
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell. Yeah, and I thought him and the lady. I'm sure. I just assumed that was going to be like the love story.
That's what you would think, and honestly, that's what I was thinking coming in. But it never got to that, which is kind of like it was close, but they never made it about that, which I think was kind of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, because sometimes it's just kind of forced and
every movie, man.
I don't know if you're trying to appeal to a different demographic, you can sell the movie that way as like an action romance thriller or something like that.
Totally, yeah.
I don't know.
You have to be able to appeal to not just your one target audience. You got to appeal to everyone. That's how you make money.
Since we're talking about ridiculous situations, did you see Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
I did. I saw it in theaters and not too long ago.
How did you feel about the fridge? Nuking the fridge. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I do. That was, I didn't think much of it then, but now as I'm older, I kind of think about it like how on earth did he survive that?
Because the fridge was lead lined.
Yeah.
Was the rationale behind it. But it wiped out everything else except that dang lead fridge.
You know what's going to happen? We're going to get to a point where someone is going to try to do that.
Sure.
And they're going to, I don't know. They're not going to make it. They're going to get seriously hurt, and they're going to be like, "Well, Indiana Jones could do it, so why couldn't I?" He has no superpowers.
I don't know if fridges are still lead lined or not.
I don't know if they are.
Because it was like set in the 50s.
Yeah.
And he found himself on the nuclear testing site and heard the countdown. Was like, "Oh crap!" and jumped in the fridge. To save himself. It was compared at the time, because I saw it in theaters too. It was compared as the new age jumping the shark.
Yeah.
From Happy Days, right? Like, you did something so, and Indiana Jones is a fictional action character. So maybe that wasn't when things jumped over the line. But for a lot of people, it's like, okay, now we've gone too far. We need to reel it back into reality a little bit.
I mean, have you seen the newest one that came out 2 years ago?
I have not.
Dial of Destiny. I'm not gonna spoil the overall thing, but there's time travel involved in it. It's just very. Some of the things they do are like much worse than the fridge scene.
They took the fridge scene and just kept on going after that, is what you're telling me.
Yes, basically.
Okay, I don't know if that one appeals to me as much.
I will say, I think it's better than Crystal Skull, though.
Okay, I didn't mind Crystal Skull. I thought it was setting up for like Shia LaBeouf to kind of carry the franchise on, but then he kind of went off the deep end after that, and they're like, hey, Harrison, I know you're 90, but you want to come do another movie in the 2020s?
Yeah,
sure.
Till he's 90.
That's hour number 1 in the books. We'll try and work in some of your more movie-related text as the show goes along. Coming up next, it is football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Halftime show, Tyler Head, Jack Veltri, David Ayer along with you here on your Friday on the game. Congratulations. You've almost made it to the weekend. Again, navigating our way through the slower days of summer, certainly when it comes to football. As guys back on campus, they came back on Memorial Day night, have been doing a lot of, obviously, workouts and stuff. And camp, I guess, starts at the beginning of August, typically.
We haven't gotten a date on that yet.
No date on that yet.
I'm trying to think back to last year. It's typically around like the end of right at the end of July or right into August. And typically what happens is it's that last week where we do media day, where we talk with Beamer and then all the players. And are you guys typically out there for those, or
for
like the media day at the facility?
Elijah will typically go out there and just get some one-on-ones with players.
But you guys aren't set up or anything,
I think they've done that in years past. We didn't do it last year. I've never been out there myself, but I think I've maybe produced when Jay and Terry were out there or something along those lines. I don't know. We may be out there. We'll be out at Birdie's with Beamer and all that kind of stuff.
I'll be
out
coming
at
out. That'll be usually
media days, and once we get to media days, that's when the ball really starts rolling. Now we're on the fast track, and I don't know, that'd be around less than 60, 50-ish days until the season starts, I guess.
Yeah, so July 15th is media day for South Carolina at the SEC media days.
45 days until the season starts or something along those lines.
Much.
So we're getting there. Again, a lot of questions about this South Carolina team this offseason, and one that I was pondering a little bit. And yesterday, Dimitri and I had Alex Kirshner of Split Zone Duo podcast on, and I posed him this question talking specifically about the coordinators, but I want to expand out on it a little bit because I think there's a lot of pressure on all the coaches, quite frankly, on this team. But I'll kind of zero in on Beamer, Mike Shula, and Clayton White. And I want to kind of assess how much pressure is on each one of them this upcoming season on a scale of 1 to 5. So let's start with Coach Beamer. And again, he's the face of the program. He's the head of the program, the CEO, president, whatever you want to call it. Everything goes through him. So when the program is good, he's going to get praise. When the program's bad, he's going to get ridiculed. That is what comes with the job. So you had a 9-4 year last year. You were on the doorstep of the college football playoff. You were one of the hottest teams in all of college football the back half of the season. Again, my buddy Logan said, I didn't want to see Georgia come into Willie B in October or November because that probably would have gone bad. You had one of your best seasons in the program's had in a while. How much pressure does that put on you as a coach now, having to back that up the next season?
I think there's a lot of pressure in that way. Now, there's a difference between the pressure that was on Beamer after the 5-7 season and this upcoming season. Like when that happened in 2023, when they underperformed and went 5-7, I think people were talking about, if Shane does not get this thing right in 2024, we're going to be talking about this team and him, maybe something changing in the near future. Maybe he'll be a little bit more on the hot seat. Now, obviously, that has changed because he had a great season last year.
Yep.
So it's new pressure in a different way where it's like his job is secured for right now. He obviously just got that new contract not too long ago. So he's set, but pressure in a good way in that, like, hey, you need to try to get to 10 wins and to a college football playoff this year.
I think there's a degree of having to prove that a year like last year was not a fluke or not a flash in the pan. And again, 2022, they obviously had the 8-win season, 2 huge upsets to close out the year, and it was, it was awesome. And that made 2023 that much more disappointing. Because, man, you had this team in such a good place. Everybody was talking about you, and then you went out there and couldn't even get to a bowl game the next year. And there was a lot of factors that led to that, obviously. But I think people, again, looked at South Carolina last year the same way they did at the end of 2022 and said, hey, wow, look at what Beamer's got going here. Now you got to go out there and back it up, right? Because if you go out there and go 5-7 again and miss a bowl game, people say, okay, Beamer's good for a good year every now and then, but it's not a consistent thing. I think you have the opportunity to confirm to a lot of people, like, no, this can be a year-to-year thing or a year in and year out thing compared to a hit-or-miss type of thing.
You can flush the narrative about what you just said right there with a really solid season right now. Now, I don't think you necessarily need to make a playoff. Obviously, that should be the goal. That should be the next step. But I don't think anyone's going to complain if you're South Carolina about, hey, like they went and got 9 wins again. Like that's, at least in that sense, that's consistency.
I think the win total is an important thing because, again, for South Carolina, the standard was, hey, if you can get to 10 wins, that's a phenomenal year. And again, if you can flirt with that now, that's still really, really good. Obviously, with the playoff being what it is, if you can be around 9 to 10 wins, you're at least in the conversation of the college football playoff. Yeah. And if they go 9-3 again this year, I'm sure they'll be floating around it too, depending on who those wins and losses are. Certainly, again, so I agree with you. I don't think it's like, hey, playoff or bust for this year's a disappointment. If you can still be around that same area and be in consideration, that I think a lot of people view that as positive. Obviously, we'd love to see them go to the playoff because that'd be awesome. But if you're putting a number on it, pressure-wise,
I was just going to say, probably just like a 3 because I don't think, like, yes, you would like to see them get to the playoff, but also here, keep in mind, I know this is just the second year of the 12 team, but South Carolina has never historically been to these moments where a playoff, national championship, whatever in football. So to get there this year, I don't think it'd be like a surprise or anything. It'd be part of like the expectation that is obviously in the building and then the outside narrative and stuff. But if they weren't getting in there and they were to go 8-9 wins, I think that would be like, okay, like we expected that.
So where are we putting the number?
3.
3.
Yeah,
okay,
3.
So 3, that's fair. Mike Shula taking over as the offensive coordinator. His pressure comes in keeping Lenora Sellers on track. And I think it concerns a lot of people when we look at the bowl game and saw that Lenora Sellers did not play the same type of football that we saw in those prior 6 games that they obviously won, got themselves in the situation that they were in the playoff standings and all those kind of things. And the question becomes, okay, was that something they were trying for the bowl game? Was it because that Illinois was really spying on Sellers to prevent him from beating him with his legs? Or is Shula's philosophy going to be that much different than Dow Loggins that we don't get to see the same type of Sellers this upcoming season as we did last?
And I can't lie, I felt kind of the same way being out there in Orlando for that game, kind of thinking like, this isn't like exactly what we saw with Lenoris under Dowell. Now, I will say, I don't take too much stock into the bowl game because, number one, some players were missing. You didn't have Rocket Sanders out there, so that was a big hit for sure not to have him. But also, like, I just think implementing, not that it was a new system necessarily when Shula took over, like they were going to take a lot of concepts from what worked with Sellers and for Dowell and stuff and apply it for that bowl game. Now, if we see that again this season, like throughout the year, where it's kind of like, it's a lot of like, not a drop-off necessarily, but it's like, Sellers is capable of so much more. And if we don't see him get to that level, then I think there's a lot of concern there. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. Because, like,
there is.
This could be his draft year.
It could be. And Shula has talked about, hey, we want to make him better passer. We want to keep his eyes down the field and not, cut and run right away, and keep the plays, going if you can. And that's something that takes time and development and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see if the offseason, ended up, proving beneficial for them in that regard. People just don't want to see a drastic difference in what the philosophy of the offense was. And you do have to remember that a lot of the great plays that Sellers made was because the protection broke down and he was running for his life and just happened to be a better athlete than the majority of the guys that were chasing after him. And you really hope you don't have to do that this year. You really hope that Sellers' great run plays are on designed runs as opposed to, hey, he was trying to pass, but he just had to run for his life because, he had 3 guys in his face trying to sack him. And again, there's a lot of moving pieces on offense, but I'll say this. I think I'll put Shula's pressure at like a 4.5 because I think it's pretty darn high because if Sellers regresses at all this year, that's the finger you point at saying, hey, new offensive coordinator, new scheme, whatever, it changed and Sellers got worse.
And you remember that discussion we had like 2 days ago just about the fact of, coordinators and quarterbacks, like, who are you going to side with if things go bad? Yeah. You're going to side with your quarterback. Like, this is the star here.
You are. And again, given the fact that Sellers is pro eligible after this year, regardless of what happens, he can go pro, whether it's a good season or bad season or somewhere in between. And you have what could possibly be the best quarterback your program's ever seen from a talent and skill perspective. You don't want to feel like you wasted his final year of talent, right? Saying, okay, yeah, they were okay, but they could have been better. And if Shula were let him do this or that, like those are the conversations that would be being had South Carolina goes 6-6 this year, and Sellers' numbers go down a little bit.
You don't want this to be like 2 years ago when you had Spencer Rattler back for another year, and not that he was great. Like, let's not get that twisted. Like, he was great, but they went 5-7. So
Yes.
you kind of, in that same breath, if you get a great season out of Lenore's, you don't want to waste it with a record that's just not great. So the pressure's definitely on Shula.
Last one here, Clayton White. And again, I bring this up because it's so funny what a difference a year can make. November of 2023, we were not sure Clayton White would be retained as the defensive coordinator in 2024. Like, man, if you make a change, probably going to be a DC. Better be brushing up on that resume, sending out applications and all that kind of stuff. And then November of last year, it's like, man, can they hang on to him, or is he going to get poached as a head coach somewhere? Like, he did a complete 180 in people's minds with the defense last year. And again, the skill level that you saw obviously translate to a lot of guys getting drafted was, undeniable. But you've lost all those guys, or a majority of those guys. You have Dylan Stewart, obviously. You have Brandon Cisse, who's a really good guy in the back end of your defense. But it seems like everywhere else is a big question mark of a lot of highly touted guys, but not a lot of guys that have proven themselves consistently at this level yet. So, all right, Clayton, here's your new deck of raw materials. What can you build with me?
Yeah, and I think going into last year, like you said, like Clayton in that 2023 season, we were not sure what was going to happen, like, quite honestly, because it was really rough. And then that November, which they played much better football overall, the defense was significantly better.
Yep.
And a lot of that had to do with Clayton. I feel like that carried over to this last season here. And so I think what we see going into this year, like, I think there was more pressure last year for sure, because not only were you coming off the year where things were a little shaky, you were also having to replace a lot of players as well that year and see a lot of guys develop and progress. And so I think that's what we're going to have to see here. A little bit more added is you're replacing a lot of players, but you're also hoping they develop into what you had last year.
If the defense takes a significant step back, how much can they just lost a lot of talent excuse be used?
I think it depends. Like, if guys across the board are regressing, like if Jalen Kilgore were to just not have a good year, let's say that, because he's been fantastic at South Carolina, and he's probably turning pro after the season. But let's say for whatever reason, numbers are down, he just regressed.
Yeah.
But it's the same across the board. Then I feel like, okay, you can kind of look past it's just a lot of new guys excuse. Like, I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. I think it's going to be more so like if this year does not go well, then we're going to point to, well, you lost Kyle Kennard, you lost Demetrius Knight, you lost Nick Mianwari. That's a lot of guys you have to replace.
Sure. What's our pressure rating for Clayton White?
This is a tough one because it's like he's going to be, like, job is safe and all that, but like in pressure in terms of replacing these guys, I'd say it's a 5 because you're trying to replace a historic defense from last year, and that might be too tall of a task. I mean, people are going to have that expectation, the casual viewer, of, hey, like, this defense was great last year. What's going to happen this year? Like, they should be better this year. So we'll see if they can get there, and if they can, job well done.
It's obviously going to be a big year for all these coaches, and trying to back up what happened last year with the 9-win season. We finally figured out what Aaron Rodgers is going to do in 2025. We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave on your Friday on the Game.
5 letters here, just for everybody out there in Packerland and yourself today. RELAX. Relax. We're going to be okay.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher with you on your Friday here on the game. That, of course, was the voice of, at the time, Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers telling his fan base to relax. I'm trying to remember, what was the context of that? Did they get off to they have a bad couple weeks, get off to a bad start that year or something like that?
I'm not sure. So what is that clip from?
It was from a press conference where...
Like with Green Bay.
With Green Bay, because he says Packer Nation. I want to say they got off to a bad start that year and like, oh, man, this team's not going to make the playoffs. Well, I should have looked that up, but that's on me. It was... It's gone... People use the clip a lot when talking about Aaron Rodgers because that's one of his more famous quotes. I don't know how relaxed Pittsburgh fans are right now. Mm-hmm. I think their quarterback room got better, but by how much is the question?
That is the question, and I'm trying to think of like what year that would have been. If I had to guess, probably it's last year, just because the Packers were.
It was earlier than that. It's been around for a while.
Okay, well, never mind then. But I don't know how Steeler fans necessarily feel about this. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're getting an all-time quarterback, like one of the best to ever do it, future Hall of Famer. But then you look at his age and the other things, like, oh, he's coming off an Achilles injury from 2 years ago, and numbers were all right last year, but watching him in action, you could tell this is a guy that looks the part of his age, and it's showing.
By the way, it was 2014.
Okay.
They started off 1-2.
Oh, get out of here.
And after this third game, he told people to relax. They proceeded to go 12-4, win the North, and play in the NFC Championship when they lost that overtime game to the Seahawks.
Crazy. Look, I know there's potential. I think that this could work with Rodgers to Pittsburgh. Like, he has pretty good weapons, but then again, you could say the same thing about the Jets when he was there. I think, having Garrett Wilson, having guys like that, Alan Lazard, one of his favorite targets. He had Randall Cobb for a little bit too.
He brought his buddy along.
Yeah, so he his entree of guys came along with him. Now, how is it going to work this year with DK Metcalf and you got Warren in the backfield and stuff? I don't think the targets Pat Freiermuth would be nice, but I don't know how this is going to work necessarily.
It's one of those things where I think the Packers, the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers are a team that it's probably capable of making the playoffs, but that's not saying a whole lot because that should be the standard for the Steelers every single year. And I brought this up earlier. If he goes to the Browns and you say, hey, I think he can rank the Browns to a team that can make the playoffs, sure, that's a big step in the right direction. But the Steelers standard, and again, you look at their trophy case, if you need a reminder, they are thought of as one of the most successful. They're not thought of. They are one of the most successful organizations in all of football. And their expectation every single year is to win the division, make it in the playoffs, and go on a deep run. So getting in as a wild card and getting bounced in the first round, that's not good enough for the Steelers. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers makes you that much better. Again, if he plays the whole season, maybe you're 9-8 and a wild card because you're not going to unseat the Ravens in the AFC North, right?
No.
Like, that's just not going to happen. I don't think, I don't think John Harbaugh is pulling his hair out today like, oh, no, we got to play Aaron Rodgers twice this year. Like, I think they got it covered. You know what I mean? Like, and look, Aaron Rodgers is legitimately one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, Hall of Famer, all that kind of stuff. But this version of him, I don't know how much better that makes the Steelers.
No. You want to know the last time Pittsburgh won a playoff game? Take a guess.
You know what? I think I know this. It was the year they played in the AFC Championship game before the Patriots and Falcons Super Bowl. So that would have been the 2016 season was the last time they won a playoff game.
Do you know who they beat?
Oh, God. 2016.
So you're right. Their last game, they lost.
Win.
Well, they made it to the AFC title game. They lost to New England.
Okay.
But who they beat in the divisional round? That's their last win.
Oh, man.
And it comes after a. Oh wait, I don't remember if this is a. No, this is correct. Like,
was it the Ravens?
No, not same division.
Not same division. Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Yeah. So they beat Miami, and then beat KC, in Arrowhead, which crazy how that can happen. But
Wow.
I know teams don't do that. But so that's their last playoff win. So,
Jeez, that's almost a decade ago.
And the thing with the Steelers is that they're always consistent. Like, they don't have – Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season with Pittsburgh. Now, they went 10-7 last year. Pretty good.
Yeah.
But then they lost to Baltimore in the wild card round. The thing with the Steelers is that they're always good, but they're never good enough compared to the loaded AFC.
Not in the past handful of years.
Yes.
And, looking at the record, the next year they still went 13-3 after making the AFC Championship game, but lost to the Jaguars in the divisional round. A couple years later, 12-4, lost to the Browns in the wild card game. And even in these moments where they've jumped up and had these better seasons, they haven't done much with it. And again, if you're a Pittsburgh fan that wants to move on from Mike Tomlin, my question becomes okay, who can you hire that guarantees you're going to be better? I don't know if there is anybody.
No.
And again, the standard of the Steelers is they don't just cycle through coaches quickly.
No.
It is a big deal. It's like a new pope. It's a big deal when there's a new Steelers head coach.
And I don't know if Pittsburgh would ever, if they were going to move on from Mike Tomlin, let's say after this year, would you ever go down the route of a young coach who is up and coming? Take a chance like
Sure.
the Rams did with Sean McVay, or the 49ers did with Kyle Shanahan. One of those situations, Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think that is who the Steelers are. And look, a lot could look different after this season. Like, if things don't go well with Rodgers, if this team underperforms and they are not just missing the playoff, but imagine they go under 500, like severely. I mean, we're talking about probably moving on from Mike Tomlin. And at that point, you're probably I don't know what you would do to coach.
Real quick, let's slide a call in here. Lee in Florence wants to weigh in on the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. Lee, appreciate your call. What's on your mind?
I've been a Steelers fan since the 70s, and never in my life have I ever seen the Steelers do what they've done the last 5 years, whether bringing in Mitch Trubisky or bringing in Russell Wilson, bringing in Justin Fields, and now Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we usually have an organic quarterback that we draft, we groom, and make him better. Terry Bradshaw. You think about Ben Roethlisberger, but now we're like this. To me, it seems like Mike Tomlin. This is a desperate move because he knows he's on the hot seat. Because a lot of the Steelers fans, like myself, are ready to move on from Mike Tomlin.
So when you look at your quarterback room, how much better do you feel about Aaron Rodgers being your starting quarterback than Mason Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph's been there, done that. He didn't do nothing last time he was there. Only thing he did is get people mad where they want to hit him with a helmet.
That's his most famous play in the NFL up to this point, right?
That's right. And also, I believe, just my opinion, I think the Steelers got the best quarterback in the draft when they picked Will Howard because the gauntlet that he went through to actually win the playoff game, he played the best teams in America and blew them all out. So that's kind of testament to how good of a quarterback he is, even though the rest of the NFL, I don't guess they saw it, but I see Will Howard being the quarterback of the future for the Steelers.
And that certainly could be the case. Appreciate the call there, Lee, 803-404-6100. And that's somebody, again, you don't want to throw him out there to the Wolves on day one. There's a reason you drafted him late because he's somebody that you can stick on your bench and potentially develop. And I don't know, maybe that is the answer one day down the line. But for now, it's the Steelers show, it's the Rodgers show, and then it's Mason Rudolph after that. And whatever happens, it's going to be a big story as the season goes along.
What really gets me, again, if it is true, Adam Schefter reports, it's like the gospel, but if it is true that the Steelers really were just waiting this out and confident that he was going to come, all the warning signs are there to not go after him. The Pat McAfee show stuff, the head case he can tend to be. Great player, but I don't know if it's worth it at this age too.
I want to expand on that a little bit coming up next and also let you hear Terry Bradshaw's rant from a couple weeks ago on Aaron Rodgers because this deserves more unpacking here as the hour goes along. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Captain Dave along with you talking football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour on your Friday here on The Game.
That is just, to me, is a joke. What are you going to bring him in for 1 year? Are you kidding me? I mean,
that's not the Steelers' way, right?
No, man, that guy needs to stay in California and go somewhere and chew on bark and whisper to the gods out there.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Friday here on the game. That was Steelers legend Terry Bradshaw on a radio program a couple weeks ago talking about his thoughts on the saga that has been Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers this offseason. Again, the Steelers play football in 93 days, and just yesterday learned who their quarterback actually was going to be. And, you know, you hear that, okay, it seems like the Steelers kind of had an inkling and an idea of, you know, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers and if he was going to sign with them or not. But, and you heard Terry Bradshaw say it right there, that this isn't the Steelers' way. Like, again, the Steelers are a storied and proud organization that don't bend themselves for anyone. You know what I mean? So to go along with this charade for a quarterback that, let's face it, is not in his prime anymore seems very anti-Steelers.
It's very surprising because it's just not, like you said, it's not the Steeler way. And we're talking about, I mean, look, they have a newer GM, I should say. You know, Omar Khan's been the GM with the Steelers since 2022, but he's been in the organization for, gosh, I mean, since the turn of the century. I mean, if anyone knows the Steeler way, it's got to be him, right? I mean, sure. I mean, he's the one, obviously, ownership too, wanting Aaron Rodgers. And so it does feel a little bit, not out of left field with this move, but it's like how long they were actually like, what were they going to do if he ultimately decided, yeah, you know, I want to retire. Like, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I want to retire. Like Mason Rudolph, I guess.
Mason Rudolph.
I mean,
and like Lee said, maybe Will Howard ends up being the dude.
Yeah.
At some point in the year, I don't know, but it would not have been a great situation. And again, I think Aaron Rodgers is the best option out of all of them. I'm not denying that, but that separation between them is not that great.
Yeah. But there was like no one else that they thought like maybe like, I mean, I don't think you were going to bring Russell Wilson back. But.
I talked to our guy Chris, who's a resident Steelers fan in here this morning, and I was like, I just got to know your thoughts on this, and he wasn't overly excited, but you know, he mentioned that, you know, they were exploring maybe like Kirk Cousins, right? Who again didn't lead on how injured he was when he came to the Falcons last year, and that turned out to be a disaster and ends up losing his job to Michael Penix. So I don't know how good that would have been.
Could be better than this. I mean, Kirk's a little older too, right? He's in his mid-30s.
Yeah, but he's also had the injury history. Yeah. He's been banged up a lot. And again, last year, he was not as he led people to believe he was healthier than he actually was. Which again, he was just a statue. Couldn't move around. Couldn't make good throws. Was throwing interceptions left and right. So I don't know how good that would have been. And if being honest, I think I'd probably take a Aaron Rodgers right now over a Kirk Cousins based on what I saw last year. So their options were not plentiful, to put it in short.
It's crazy how there's like no excitement for, I mean, mostly no excitement.
Let's go back a decade, right? If for some reason the way the contracts worked out, if Aaron Rodgers left the Packers and went to the Steelers in 2015, oh my God, this would have been the talk of the entire league, earth-shattering. I can't believe that he's going there. Pittsburgh would be like, oh man, we're Super Bowl contenders this year, which they still had, you know, Ben Roethlisberger at that point in time. But bear with me here, like this would have been huge.
Yeah.
Even, I don't know, 5 years ago, this would have been huge. But again, especially with the injury in his first year in New York, he's not been the same since.
No.
Good, but not elite, not great.
And the reason I bring up there, like, there's literally like no excitement is that you look back to 2 years ago. I mean, you can't help but see how many Jet fans were excited about Aaron Rodgers. He was going to turn things around.
Sure.
Like, and again, that was pre-injury. So it's like the fact that like not many people are like thrilled about this. Like, it's not just because of the injury. I think it's also just the fact of, can he even like play at the level that we have seen him play for so long? I don't know. I think he's going to be good. But when you think of Aaron Rodgers, you expect like so much better. And it's not even that long ago that when in his last years with the Packers, he was still at the top of his game. I mean, he won an MVP not too long ago. So it's like to see him kind of drop off a little bit, it wouldn't be shocking this year. And maybe this is really just it for him. Maybe 1 year.
My question becomes, and you mentioned it, the antics that come along with Aaron Rodgers. goes on McAfee. I don't think there's an NFL player that's appeared on more podcasts than Aaron Rodgers has the past couple years. And anytime he gets a microphone in front of him, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth, whether it be a conspiracy, whether it be going after someone, butting heads with somebody on his team, a coach, or whatever it may be. Like, there's a lot that comes with bringing in Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers, and this is where I give Tomlin so much credit, not for being a coach that's never had a losing season, but the fact that he's contained some mega egos and personalities in Pittsburgh that we didn't find out how bad they were until they left, namely being Antonio Brown, who, again, we didn't realize was a wacko until he left the Steelers organization. George Pickens has obviously been an animal trying to break out of its cage that the Steelers were able to keep contained, and I'm interested to see how wild he goes now that he's down in Dallas. Tomlin is really good with people, it seems like. How do he and Aaron Rodgers get along is my biggest question here.
I mean, they're going to have to. I mean, that's the big thing here. And, I think if things go south quickly, what happens? Because you brought him in. Here's the one thing. You did not bring him in to be your long-term solution, obviously. So how quickly could they pull the plug on this if it's just not working right away and it's like they're 1-4 or whatever? Like, do you just bench him at that point? I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers we're talking about.
I think he gets a long leash, right, because of who he is and what he's accomplished. And again, I think we all recognize he's not the same Aaron Rodgers that was winning MVPs and, going to conference championships. Hard to believe. And look, I don't ever see him going back to another Super Bowl. No. It still blows my mind that we're saying Aaron Rodgers is going to play in one Super Bowl in his NFL career. That seemed like an impossible statement 15 years ago, right? But it's where we are, and I don't see him ever getting back to it. That being said, he's still a good quarterback that is a better option than what you have. It's going to take a lot, and I mean a lot of struggles, I think, for the Steelers to give up on him.
No, I mean, we didn't see the Jets necessarily ever really give up on him. So
again, the injuries were the only thing that put him on the bench.
Yeah, and I think if that injury hadn't happened, I think we'd be talking. I think he'd still be with the Jets.
Yeah, and again, if that injury doesn't happen, who knows how much better he could be. Now, yes, he was tailing off a little bit towards the end of his time in Green Bay compared to, again, some of the MVP years and stuff like that, but still was a really, really good quarterback. He was not his best, but still really, really good. But, man, especially for somebody like Aaron Rodgers that uses his mobility around the pocket and obviously running for first downs when he needs to, that took a big part of his game away. He can't move around as fleet-footedly as he could before because he's got a bad Achilles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll see what kind of weapon, I guess, Jaylen Warren could be for him this year. I think he's a fine running back, but I don't think of him as like one of the top in the NFL. And the reason I bring him up is because you mentioned it, Aaron's not going to be running around a lot. The dump off plays, the running game for Pittsburgh, how is that going to look for them? And I think it's a big part of whether the Steelers are going to have a good year or not.
Yeah, and how much can they protect him? Because look, the Jets had a tough time keeping him upright. He was sacked 40 times last year. Russell Wilson alone was sacked 33 times last year for the Steelers. So can that offensive line protect their aging quarterback to where, like I said earlier, every time he gets hit, you're not like, oh, man, that's his fifth one of the game. Is he going to be all right? Is he going to be able to get up? You got to keep this guy as upright as possible.
Yeah, you have to. That is a necessity this season, not just for the fact of his play on the field, but keep him out there. I mean, preventing him from injury.
Yeah, so, again, it's going to be interesting to watch all that play out for sure, because anytime Aaron Rodgers does anything, it's obviously going to be front page news. And I do think it's funny because, the NFL, and again, I'm sure there was a lot of communication back and forth with the Steelers, like, hey, is this going to happen? Well, what's the deal here? Because the way they planned out the Steelers' schedule was very telling of we're pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is going to play for them at the Jets in week number 1, taking on a divisional foe in the Vikings that's an international game. I don't know where that one is. Let's see. He's going to take on they go to the Packers, or they play the Packers at home Sunday Night Football in late October. They go to the Bears later on in the season as well. And again, this obviously is within the cycle of having to play the NFC North as the division that they pulled this year. But also they're going to the Ravens. They got a game against the Bills, which is already set for 4:25 on CBS. Like they knew what they were doing when they made the schedule. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean playing in the loaded AFC North is only one piece of the puzzle of how difficult things are going to be. Add that in with you have to play the AFC East this year, which just so happened to fall in the way the schedule changed for this year.
Yep.
And that's going to be tough. And,
For sure.
it'll be tough.
Come back, wrap up hour number 2. Hit your Firehouse subs. Text of the hour, 803-404-6100 here on the halftime show on the game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyrad, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave with you on your Friday here on the game. It is time for our Firehouse Subs text of the hour at 803-404-6100. We're having fun with the things and movies that bother you in the last hour. And a nameless texter weighs in and says, apparently Luke used the Force to evade stormtroopers' lasers. Is that true?
When was
Self-admittedly, I'm not a big Star Wars person.
I'm trying to think when. So you have, and I do you care if I mention it? I mean, our listeners on air, hopefully they don't mind getting spoiled a little bit. So in Mandalorian, Luke shows up in season 2.
Actually, it'd be like spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Go.
Shoot,
Go for it.
It's too late now. Dave, I'm sorry. So look, spoiler. So Luke shows up in Mandalorian season 2 at the end, and he uses the Force a lot too, but he's not going up against stormtroopers. They're like droids. They're called dark troopers.
But they're not just shooting at him over the course of the movies. Like, they're shooting at other things and people too, and they're always missing. That's the point.
Which is what I'm thinking about here. I don't remember him using the Force against a stormtrooper now, but like against a dark trooper in Mandalorian, I do remember that, but I don't know.
By the way, somebody weighed in on the thing about the revolver. They said between 5 and 8 rounds per revolve, 6 is customary. Also, great shots who always miss. You suck at shooting. That's the thing, too, is like, have you ever seen John Wick or any of the John Wick movies?
I have not.
Good movies, good action movies.
Seems like it, yeah.
Obviously, a lot of shooting happens in those movies, and like, he does get hit, but like never fatally, obviously, because they've made like 5 of those movies by now. And again, just like this thing about the fact that he never dies, right? And like, he's in all these gunfights and against all these people, hand-to-hand combat, and like, okay, I get it. He's the hero. He's supposed to survive, but it gets to a point where it becomes a little unbelievable. Like, all right, you've made it through all these people and gotten the better of all of them, and not a single one of them's gotten you. Like, come on, man. This isn't. Or, okay, here's my favorite one. Here's my favorite thing that happens in movies that is so unrealistic. You know, bad guy gets the good guy in a corner or kidnaps him or something like that. Obviously gonna take care of him so he's not a problem anymore. And then he reveals his evil plan. Instead of just shooting the guy and being done with it, he takes 5 minutes, say, here's how I got here, here's what I've done, here's what I'm going to do next after you die, or something along those lines. And in that time, here comes help, or the good guy finds a bobby pin in his pocket and undoes the handcuffs and overtakes the bad guy. Like,
happens
it's
all the time.
Convenient.
It's so
convenient.
I hate when there are plot conveniences in a movie and you tell the audience what you're going to do rather than show them. Like, I don't think that's great storytelling. I think it's lazy writing, number one. But I mean,
did you ever see the movie Contact back in the day about them building this big spaceship thing?
No, I haven't.
And I bring this up because Family Guy referenced it on an episode one time, but they build this big, I forget the specifics of it. They build this big spaceship thing that's supposed to help them go in space and save the world or something like that. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie. And this thing gets destroyed, right? I think by Gary Busey's brother or something like that. Weird guy in the movie. And then this like billionaire comes along, is like, oh, hey, I built an identical one that nobody knew about somewhere else. We can just use mine. Dave, have you seen Contact? Am I remembering that correctly?
I saw it, but I don't remember.
You remember that part? I'm about 50% sure that's how it went down. Like, hey, I know your spaceship thing got destroyed, but hey, I got another one that nobody knows about that I built. And we're like, okay, sure, why not?
No.
Yeah, and nobody noticed that, I guess.
Yeah,
sure. It's like that was so convenient that happened.
It's, again, plot conveniences, awful.
I didn't think I'd be ranting about Contact today, but here we are.
Here we are.
We'll hit what's turning it to coming up next. As halftime show rolls along, Tyler, Jack, and Captain Dave on the game. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler, Jack, and Captain Dave, along with you on your Friday here on the game. It is time for what's trending at 2 here on the game. By the way, we'll talk to Scott Hamilton in the Post and Courier coming up at 2:15 and get his thoughts on the state of the ACC and what the future outlook of that conference is. He's been writing some stuff about that here as of late, I believe. But I got a little bit of Gamecock news to hit on real quick here, and we've been following the transfer portal cycle that opened up at the beginning of this week, and we have yet another Gamecock entering the transfer portal, this time being a transfer himself this past year in Henry Kazmar.
Yeah, this is kind of a big loss. I would say of the 15 guys that are now in the portal from South Carolina, this is, I think, easily the biggest one that you've lost. I think for a time we were probably saying Jace Boyd, Eli Jersenbeck, despite all the injuries and stuff. But there's no doubt about it that losing Kazmar, that's big.
And I'm trying to remember back. I think it was at the beginning of the season. He was struggling at the plate. Just didn't really click. Obviously, the glove was good out in the field. But once he finally got it clicking, he's gone on to have a really strong season.
He was their best hitter, I think, in SEC play. I mean, he led the team in average at .333 in SEC with 4 doubles, 2 triples, 5 homers, and 17 RBIs. I mean, he was great for South Carolina. I mean, he ended up batting well over 300 this year, which for a time, like you mentioned, he was hovering around that Mendoza line of hitting about 200 going into SEC play. But once the Oklahoma series started, the first weekend of conference play, everything just clicked for him. And the glove had been a little bit of an issue for a time. And it was not perfect this year.
Sure.
Still made a lot of errors. But I think overall he was very solid this year. And now you're at a point where you don't have – I don't think you have any middle infielders returning next year because you lost Henry, Tippett, Caden Gaskin, Jordan Carrion, Nolan Naraki. I mean, that's your entire middle infield right there. And you're going to have 2 guys coming in next year with a JUCO guy and a high school guy, but you need to go into the portal now and look for 2 starters.
Yeah, so that kind of becomes obviously the area of need. And Carolina's already picked up a couple guys in the portal so far, not necessarily addressing those areas of need, but which day is it, 14 or 15 guys that have jumped in the portal so far? Jeez. Well, if you
not surprising.
If you think about it, let's go back to what we heard Coach Maneri both say publicly and allegedly say, based on reporting from our guy John Whittle. He didn't like talent on the team. So they're gone for the most part. You're getting your wish. Now, how do you build the team back up and make it better next year?
But Henry is very much talented. Now,
that was probably not one of the ones he didn't say that to directly.
Yeah, like he definitely, like there were some that he did say publicly, like not names specifically besides Bo and KJ Scobie, that names that he did not want to lose. And I think Henry would have easily fallen into that category of guys he did not want to lose, unless there's just something that was going on that we just did not know of. But, I mean, yeah, this is a big loss. And, again, you lose your starter at second base with Jordan Carrion and your original starter at second base in Nolan Naraki to the portal. Now you lose Kazmar. I mean, look, there is a way in which you can make this work without having to go knee-deep into the portal and go spend a truckload of money just to get 2 guys to come in. I mean, you have KJ, you have Bo. What's to stop South Carolina from potentially moving KJ over to like shortstop or something, right?
Yeah.
Because in the portal, you actually have, and JUCO too, you have gotten a lot of guys coming in. Like Logan Sutter's a perfect example. He's someone that plays both corner infield spots. You have Dawson Harmon who plays third base. You can make it work in that way, but that's only one spot you're looking at.
Yeah.
And maybe you move Sutter around in the infield because that is something that he could potentially do for next season, is maybe play second or something. But you also, I think, need to do your due diligence to take a look in the portal.
Speaking of baseball, super regional action underway. Arizona and North Carolina out in Chapel Hill underway in game number 1. Bottom of the 6th right now, North Carolina with a 10-2 lead. Coming up at 3 o'clock, you'll get Miami and Louisville rolling, Florida State and Oregon State. And the one SEC team that starts action today is Auburn taking on Coastal Carolina out there in Auburn. That first pitch coming up at 9 o'clock tonight.
And North Carolina continues to blow this game open.
It's added 2 more.
12-2 in the 6th.
Should they have run rules in the postseason?
Yes, they should.
Some of these regional games, like especially like some of the SEC teams taking on mid-majors, got out of control. It's like, what are we doing? Come on.
You know what I was actually doing last night randomly, because I thought today was the 2-year been 2 years since South Carolina won the regional in 2023, which I was off by a few days. But I found myself watching highlights from their game against Central Connecticut State, where they won 19-1, and it's like it's in the 5th inning. It's like 18-0. It's like, come on, like let's call the game here, do a run rule. I think in the postseason you just can never. All bets should be off. Like you should be able to continue the game, but like at the same time, if you're losing by 15 runs, you should probably call the game.
And you know what? If you want to bump the run rule up a little bit,
make it 12.
If you make it 12 or 15, I think that's reasonable. Like, okay, fine. Yeah, maybe you can go on a run and come back down from 10 down or something like that. But again, when you get up to 12, 15, 18, 20, it's like, all right, now we're just wasting time. Because, again, we still got to go through 3 more innings. We know who's going to win. Let's wrap this up. I think that would alleviate, quite frankly, a lot of embarrassment, too.
If the run rule did not exist in the regular season, I don't know how I would have gotten through this year. Like, you talk about early in the year when South Carolina actually looked decent and they were run ruling teams here and there. I mean, I don't know if I could have lasted. I mean, it's just
is there anything better
silly
on a midweek when they just go out there and run rule a team and it's over in like 2.5 hours?
Oh,
that is crisp.
It's beautiful.
And I heard listening to I think it was the LSU series driving around a couple weeks ago, and Derek and Stuart were talking about this. Why is it that, and college baseball's had the pitch clock longer than Major League Baseball has? Why are these games taking longer than ever? Mm-hmm. The pitch clock is supposed to speed things up. Why are we now getting into 3.5 to 4 hour games routinely?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's the pitching is simply not as good as the MLB for one. So the MLB pitching is leagues better, obviously, than college, just because that's simple looking at it. But I would also say pitching changes happen all the time because of that. And so, like South Carolina changes pitching so frequently. There's also mound visits, and there's other things that take longer. So that's why you see it takes so much longer.
And you're right. The reviews as well are killers.
Oh, my gosh.
And the head umpires come out. Okay, we're going to review this play.
Yep.
Then they have to all go run off the field, look at the little monitor.
Stupid.
Why can't we have somebody, especially in conference play, why can't there be one person in Birmingham that you send the play to, they make the call and send it back?
Well, that is what they do in SEC play. So they have, it's different in non-con where it's like they go into the tunnel and go review it or whatever. In SEC
they still
play,
leave the field. What's the point of that?
I'm not sure exactly, but in SEC, I do remember they stand on the field. One guy has, I think, like the earbud in to like relay it from what the person in Birmingham is hearing, and then they make the call. So it's a much simpler process. It does take so long. I mean, that, and then you also had like a lot, like the LSU series you mentioned. Jay Johnson would come out to talk to the umpires or go talk to his batters or whatever. We would see that all the time. And it's like that stuff right there. That, like, the MLB does it right with you get the amount of timeouts and mound visits. Like, there's a limit on it. Okay. And the pickoff throws, that's the other thing, pickoff throws.
Well, I guess that's the thing is, like, you have a limited number of mound visits, but I don't think there's a limit on how many times you can talk to the umpires.
I don't
So if you are trying to slow the game down or get your guys
and you get
an extra second, you just keep going out onto the field and talk to the umps, right?
And you get 2 challenges, so it's like that also. Man, there's just a lot of reasons why. You add it all up, and it's like, okay, it makes sense why college takes so much longer, but I think the main thing is the pitching is just nowhere near on the same level.
Yeah, and again, I look at everything. Dave, you probably do the same thing. I look at everything through a radio lens, and look, I've been plenty of times sitting in studios producing baseball games or basketball games and stuff like that, and I always try and keep an idea of like, okay, the halfway point is at this time, so that means the game should be wrapping up by then. And if you're not halfway through the 5th inning by the 90-minute mark, if you're like only in the 3rd inning at that point in time, it's like, oh God, this is going to take forever.
Think about how I felt when that Florida game that did not start because South Carolina and Florida just insisted on waiting 3 hours for the rain to stop. I mean, did not get home. I did not go to sleep till like 3 in the morning. Unreal. So
it's a grind, that's for sure. Obviously, other things going on. NBA Finals, Game 1 last night. Another miracle shot by Therese Halliburton in the waning second. The waning second there as they end up taking the lead with 0.3 to go and tape game number 1, 111 to 110. I was scrolling through Twitter, And you're familiar with the surrender cobra, right? When people, they put their hands on their head like this.
Oh, yeah.
That's called the surrender cobra.
Okay.
So I found a picture that, let me see who put this up. ESPN. Where they zoomed in on faces of Thunder fans before Halliburton left the shot up. Yes. And because again, he'd done it so many times in the playoffs, they knew this is probably going to go in. We're about to lose after leading the entire game.
You ever see the photo? I'm sure you have the photo of Jordan in '97 against Utah, and all the fans just.
Yep.
It reminds me of that. I mean, it's just the shot's going in, and it's crazy.
Yeah. So that was game number 1 last night. Game number 2 coming up on Sunday, 8 o'clock on ABC. We'll get the wrap up for women's softball coming up tonight, or softball. I don't have to say women's softball, but game 3 between Texas Tech and Texas tonight out there, also in Oklahoma City, funny enough. And Texas Tech evened the series last night with 4-3 victory and now playing for all the marbles. Again, Texas is a program, been there, done that, expected to be here. Texas Tech, again, they went out there and got Najiri Kennedy this offseason, and she has quite literally pulled them to a national championship game.
Speaking of Kennedy, I just saw on Twitter here, she just signed a new 7-figure NIL deal with Texas Tech. So
why not?
Yeah, why not? So
that's the thing about softball is there's not the threat of somebody going pro early.
No.
Everybody exhausts their eligibility.
Yeah. 4 years. It's the same thing in women's basketball and stuff. And I kind of like that, but also it's there's really no competition in that sense.
Sure. We'll talk with our guy, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier, coming up next. A lot of things happening around the ACC. Athletic directors leaving and a whole lot of other mess. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Towerhead, Jack Belcher, Captain Dave on your Friday here on the game. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave along with you here on your Friday on the game. It is 2:15 on a Friday. That means we got to check in with our guy, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier, a interesting man to say the least. Now, Scott, can you confirm or deny the rumors that you are taking the Georgia Tech athletic director job?
I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm more focused on this radio hit. I love Matt, and I love my, I'm worried about family, but right now I'm mainly concerned about this radio hit.
Fair enough, and we appreciate you focusing on the task at hand. And when you do get named the athletic director over there, we'll discuss that at a different time. Regardless, J-Bat leaving for Michigan State, I think speaks volumes in a lot of ways to where the ACC stands right now, that somebody that's done a really good job of building up all of their programs out there says, let me go to the conference that's making twice, if not three times as more money as we are here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. This is the further marginalization, if not the emasculation of the ACC, man. I mean, they're getting a really good hire with this, and it's Michigan State. It's not Michigan. It's not Ohio State, but this is still a school. It's got a lot of potential, dude. I mean, and people forget Michigan State actually made the college football playoff back a decade ago. I mean, they've had success in your lifetime, certainly my lifetime.
Sure.
But the guy they're getting, I mean, he's young. I think he's 43. He's done wonders at Georgia Tech. The product we see on the field this fall at Georgia Tech, I think, is going to be pretty impressive. And it's in no small part because of his ability to galvanize things there, but to also really be a fundraiser. He's an incredible fundraiser. And here's something else. I mean, think about this, Tyler and Jack. Hi, Jack. Think about this. He served on the House settlement, the committee to implement the House settlement. That's a big deal, especially since that House settlement is in limbo right now, and schools are preparing for, how are they going to react? How are they going to respond? What's going to be the impact of the House settlement once it goes into action and revenue sharing becomes a thing? Here's a guy with inside baseball knowledge. I mean, he knows the guts of this thing. He knows the impact it's going to have. He can get Michigan State up and running faster than probably a lot of 99.9% of the administrators in the country. It's just a heck of a thing for Michigan State. But again, it's a bad deal for the ACC. And don't forget this, guys. Don't forget this. Only hours after he split Atlanta, well, then Virginia lost its baseball coach, man. Brian O'Connor went to Mississippi State.
Yep.
Scott, continuing on that a little bit more with the whole, been keeping up this for a bit now. I mean, Clemson, Florida State, seems like they've finally made peace with the ACC with the ongoing lawsuits and stuff. I mean, this is the end for right now, but do you see the ACC, like in 10 years from now, do you still see these two teams that are the predominant forces of the conference with Clemson and Florida State? Do you still see them in the ACC in 10 years' time?
I don't see an ACC in 10 years' time. I truly don't. All that did by giving in to the loudest voices in the room, all it did was put an expiration date on that conference. We now know exactly how much it'll cost to get out in 5 years, and that happens to be when all the TV contracts are going to be coming up, and it's going to be right about the time that Sankey and Petiti or whoever's in the chair at the Big Ten, they're going to be going further down the road about getting a Big Two, maybe breaking away from the NCAA altogether. That's all they did. And Jay Bat, he saw it. I mean, being there at Georgia Tech's not going to get a piece of that pie between now and 2030, 2031. Where the schools that bring in the largest TV ratings and so on are going to get those bonuses. Georgia Tech is never going to be the biggest TV draw. It's not going to be the second biggest in the ACC. It's not going to be third, fourth, or probably fifth. And they're always going to be behind the eight ball with regards to not only the other conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten, but they're going to be behind the eight ball financially behind members of their own league now because of that. So he got out while the getting was good, man. He got out while the getting was good. And the ACC in 5 years, 10 years, there might be a conference called the ACC, but it ain't going to be what we know now.
Again, talking to our guy, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier. I'm glad you brought that up because I look at the Pac-12, right, that still technically exists but doesn't exist at the same time, certainly a shell of what it once was. Let's go back about 15 years ago. They had the chance to, at the time, land Texas and Oklahoma. Larry Scott, the commissioner at that point in time, said, you know what, it's in our best interest not to do that. Obviously, it was very stupid, and that started the downfall of the conference that, again, is effectively dead at this point in time. If you had to pinpoint a moment for the ACC where it all started slipping and going downhill, what moment would that be for you?
When they turned down Penn State back in 1990, I think it was 1989, if you really want to go back deep into it. But in the 21st century, I'm going to lay it at the feet of John Swofford around 2010, right about the time, I think it was maybe 2008, right about the time the Big Ten Network launched. They dragged their feet on that, man. They kicked that can down the road, kicked it down the road. And by the time the ACC Network lost, they had given up so much ground. And the Big Ten Network was off and running. The SEC Network was cranking up. And that's when other schools started going, hey, wait a minute. We're really missing out on this opportunity. It's taking so long. I'm going to put it at that.
You know, Scott, you mentioned earlier, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, so I'd like to get them here. Brian O'Connor going from Virginia, obviously in the ACC, going to SEC Power. Well, I don't know about Powerhouse right now, but once upon a time, Mississippi State, not too long ago, was in Omaha winning national championships. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I hope it works out better than the last time an older coach left and went somewhere else.
Yeah. What school is that?
You know, I'm not going to name any names, but it hasn't really panned out great. We'll leave it at that. By the way, Jack, you have a wonderful radio voice.
Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
I think maybe you need to transition. Where's Terry? Is Terry coming back?
So his kid is graduating this week, but he goes to a fancy school in Baltimore, so they have like 100 events they have to attend this week. I've been getting updates from him daily, like, what is it now? It's like, oh, I got to go sit through a presentation. We got to go to this ceremony. We got to go to this, got to go to that. I'm like, when I went to private or public school, they just said, show up, get your diploma, and never come back. It was simple, right?
Is he dressed like Danny Noonan going to the judge's yacht launching? He's got on the double-breasted, blazer, got a little captain. I'm going to go with that. Anyway, back to Jack's question. this deal with Brian O'Connor, I mean, he's getting twice as much money. He's going to have twice as many resources. He's not going to have academic restrictions because UVA is actually a legit school. He's going to Mississippi State where they teach you how to ring a cowbell, basically. I think it's a slam dunk for him, even though, he's 22 years at Virginia. 22 years. And for a guy who was at one place for 22 years to pick up and go somewhere totally different, other side of the world, basically, Charlottesville to Stark Vegas, he has to see the writing on the wall that he is never going to really compete at Virginia the way they used to be able to compete at Virginia. I mean, and guys, how many teams from the SEC in the tournament this year? 13?
That's correct. 13? Yep.
And eight eight regional sites?
Yep.
That's half. He sees the writing on the wall, and he's 54 years old. He wants to compete. He wants to win championships. He's not going to do it ever again at Virginia. Time to move on, man, and he can go there and cook. I really believe it. I mean, to your point, you said they're not the power they were back in the Thunder and Lightning days of Rafael Palmeiro Clark, but there's still some juice there, and that's a heck of a game day atmosphere, man, in Stark Vegas. Let me tell you, I can't wait to see what he accomplishes.
I think in having this conversation, we've quelled anybody's worries that Shane Beamer may ever leave South Carolina for Virginia Tech if Brent Pry gets fired in the next year or so. Zero chance of that happening.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'll be the AD at Georgia Tech before he's the head coach at Virginia Tech. We'll put it like that. I mean, I love Virginia Tech. I love going to games there.
Sure.
It's off the hook. But Shane he's really found his niche, I think. And let's face it, let's just go ahead and lay this out there. The transition with his dad and all that, it wasn't exactly perfect. And I feel that it went the way somebody of Frank Beamer's status should have been treated. We'll leave it out there like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We've got about 2 minutes here.
Yeah. I kind of want to circle back to O'Connor real quick just for a second, just because I had a follow-up on that. You mentioned, subtly the age of another coach out there, which we're not going to name names, we know. And maybe it'll work out in the future. Who knows? But you mentioned 54 years old. Brian, I thought he'd be a little bit older. 54. That feels like the prime years, right? So with the SEC having as many teams right in the mix of things, I mean, only 4 going to a super regional this weekend, but do you see this being a quick fix, like what we kind of expected with South Carolina?
I could, and here's why. Unlike some other coaches who might or might not have been retired before coming called off the bench, this guy's been working. He understands this new world order that we have. He's lived in both worlds. He was in the before time when it was you go out, you recruit, you get your team, those are your guys for the next 4 years. And he's also in this current age where, we got problems. Let's flip this roster really quickly. He knows how it works. And a quick fix is on the table, especially if they invest in the program that I think they will, in the way I think they have. I can see them flipping that quickly. But it's not working in some locations, let's arbitrarily say Columbia, because the folks running the show there were clueless when it came to navigating the portal, NIL, and all that. Now, maybe they've learned on the fly. Maybe they're better off going into next year than they are right now. Maybe they learned from their mistakes. But I got to see it to believe it. It was pretty bad.
He is the always interesting Scott Hamilton from the Post-Courier. Do I have you on Monday for a segment of time? Did I read that correctly from Terry?
We are a whole hour.
A whole hour. Oh man, what kind of shenanigans can we get into for a whole hour?
Okay, I have to go to Cape Cod in the morning.
Okay,
I'm flying up to Cape Cod tomorrow. I'm flying back on Sunday. I've got to go up there for this dedication at a golf course. So I'll have stories from that. I've never been to Cape Cod.
I can't wait.
I've never been to Cape Cod. Oh, man, it's going to be great. It's U.S. Open week.
Yes.
We've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'll make a very detailed list of everything I eat over the weekend. We can discuss that.
Oh, that's going to be phenomenal.
And we can FaceTime Terry Ford.
Yeah, well, of course, we're going to make fun of Terry at some point. It's what we have to do. He is Scott Hamilton. I look forward to that on Monday, man.
Hey, you guys have a good weekend. Good talking to you.
All right, we'll come back and hit the greatest day in the history of the world up next as the halftime show rolls along on your Friday here on The Game. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Jack, Captain Dave, along with you for a little bit longer here on your Friday on the Game. It is indeed time for the greatest day in the history of the world. By the way, we're going to talk to a guy from Texas Sports Unlimited and get some insight into the Texas Longhorns in this spot. He told me he was feeling a little bit under the weather, that being Brad Kellner. So we're going to try and talk to him next week and get some insight into what's going on out there in Austin, Texas. But instead, we will just do our usual greatest day in the history of the world. Go old school here. 1892. Benjamin Harrison becomes the first U.S. president to attend a Major League Baseball game. I imagine they didn't have a suite prepared for him. I think he had to sit with the masses.
So back in the day, I don't know if you knew this, back in the day, you know how first pitches work now.
Yes.
Especially with rarely do you ever see presidents throw out first pitches commonly now. You see it every now and then, like George Bush, 01. But back in the day, people, and especially presidents and stuff, when the first pitch happened, they'd throw it from their seats.
Yes.
Right behind like home plate or whatever. So I can imagine that's where he was probably sitting.
I think William Taft was the first president to actually do that, the first pitch. Harrison was the first one to just go to a game.
Yeah.
Which apparently he was a really big baseball fan. It says here was a game between the Senators in Washington, of course, and the Reds. It says he left with the Senators trailing the Reds 4-1 in the sixth inning, only to miss Washington's game-tying rally in the ninth, though they would eventually lose 7-4 in 11 innings.
But you mentioned the fact that there probably wasn't like a suite for him or whatever.
No, he's probably just sitting out there in the front row.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned the first pitch thing, because that's typically where you'll see those guys sitting.
I don't imagine there was any kind of exclusive seating back in 1892 at any kind of venue.
Like, when did the Secret Service even become?
That was after Lincoln was assassinated, so they would have been around.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had the same number of Secret Service at that point. Like, he probably had a couple guys with him, but I don't know. Like, if a sitting president were to go to a game now, I mean,
we saw it with Trump coming here to
that's true. And
Clemson.
And now he wasn't the active president at that point in time, but still,
you still get the Secret Service.
Yeah, you get the Secret Service. You had an extra security that you had to go through, and all those kind of things. That
it was crazy.
Made that quite an interesting day. But yes, 1892.
Was Taft the one that was too big for the bathtub and he got stuck in it or something?
Yes, he was the first president or the only president to get stuck in a bathtub.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think I've seen a picture of because I think his where they buried him, I think his coffin is like above ground and in what do you call it, sarcophagus now, where they put the stuff over to preserve it. It's huge.
Wow,
he's a big guy.
Maybe they figured it'd just sink in over the years.
Maybe I don't know. But yeah, that happened back in 1892. Speaking of baseball, 1941, the New York Giants baseball team becomes the first to use plastic batting helmets at that point in time. I would imagine there wasn't a whole lot of padding in those things.
No.
I don't know how effective those would have been, but it is so funny to me when you go back and watch old highlights of, the Jackie Robinson days of baseball and those kind of things and old school stuff, and they're just up there at the plate with the hat on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got and they weren't throwing 95 back then, but you got a screamer coming towards your head, hope you get out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about baseball evolving over the years. That's one thing that I don't think it gets talked about enough, is just how different the style of it was. Again, guys did not throw super hard, but you didn't wear helmets. There were no batting gloves. I mean, it was literally just ball, bat, and that's it. I mean, it's crazy.
When you came in from the field, you put your glove down and picked up your bat. Yeah. That was it. Now, I mean, we've got batting gloves, batting helmets, C-flap on the batting helmets now. That's the popular thing. Mm-hmm. You got your guards. You got your Evo shields.
Oh my gosh.
You got your shin guard. You got your sliding mitt in your back pocket, or your first base coach is holding it. What am I missing here? You got a fighting necklace on because that's supposed to help some kind of way. Did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered everything. Do we? I don't know. Jockstrap.
Yeah, well, I assume everybody's wearing one of those. I don't need to know that, but
you would think.
But it's so funny. We're watching a Tar Heels player get on first base and take off his elbow guard now, and it's so funny, the process when somebody gets on base of taking everything off to then go run bases.
And then the first base coach has to hold it the entire time. It's so funny. And it's funny when the coach has to, like, put it on because you have multiple guys coming up.
Yes. I always left my batting gloves on when I ran bases.
Yeah.
I don't understand, like, because, again, if you're sliding, you're going to put your hands in the dirt, and you're eventually going to rough up your hands. Like, I kept my batting gloves on when I ran the bases. I guess that's weird.
I think I don't know. I don't remember if I might have taken them off time and time, but, like, I do remember, you do want to have batting gloves on, I think.
I do also remember as well, and this is, so in Little League, I don't know if you guys had to do it. We had to wear cages on our batting helmets in Little League. We weren't allowed to go without it until we got to high school. So you had a little cage, face mask, whatever you want to call it, on the front of your helmet. And what I would do, I don't know why I thought I looked cool, but I would take my batting gloves and I would tape them to the face mask of my helmet if I did take them off to run the bases.
That is...
I'm sure I looked stupid, but I thought it was cool.
Oh, totally cool at the time.
So, that was my idea of cool, I guess. 2011, the BCS strips Southern California of the 2004 title, leaving that season without a BCS champion. BCS officials vacated the championship after the Trojans were hit with heavy NCAA sanctions that year for rules violations committed during the 04 and 05 seasons. Again, that also stemmed around what happened with Reggie Bush, why his Heisman Trophy got taken away. There is no dumber thing in sports than vacating wins and vacating titles. You saw it. I saw it. There was a parade. There was a trophy. We just have to pretend like this doesn't exist now. Get it, please. It's stupid.
I've never understood it. Like, what does that necessarily do? Because people were there. They remember it. Like it's on TV. Like all these things that happen. So I don't understand it at all. Like just hit them with more penalties and stuff that affect them maybe financially. I don't know.
You know what? If you want to take away scholarships, if you want to, again, ding them financially, like you said, that has an impact. But saying, all right, well, you can't have that banner up anymore that says you won the national championship, that'll show them. Like, what are we doing? That's ridiculous. And the funny thing about, and obviously they have since given Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back, and rightfully so. I don't know if you remember this, for a while at the LA Coliseum, because they don't sell the place out like they used to anymore, but they will tarp off one of the end zones, and they have the jerseys of certain Trojan legends, I think all the Heisman Trophy winners, in the end zone. They couldn't put Reggie Bush's number 5 up there because he's not recognized as a Heisman Trophy winner, but they still had OJ's.
Yeah, which, again...
and I get it. He wasn't at Southern Cal when that happened, but
the double
still.
I think, not to get too deep into it, but I think what OJ did versus...
Yes, exactly.
I think it's a little bit
different. He didn't do that when he was at Southern Cal, but the reputation obviously speaks for itself there. It's like, all right, we're not allowed to honor Reggie Bush, but we can honor OJ. Okay.
Yeah, hypocrisy at its finest.
That's where we're at these days, I guess. And again, obviously OJ's since passed now, and Reggie Bush has got his Heisman Trophy back, so all is right in the world, I guess.
It is.
One more here. 2018, LeBron James eclipses Michael Jordan. It's a record for most 30-point games in NBA playoff history, which was at the time 109, when the Cavaliers beat the Warriors 110-102 in Game 3 of the Finals that year. If you want to get into the Jordan LeBron debate, feel free. I will not be taking part in that. That's just a fact.
As Michael Jordan's Tar Heels are now up 17-2 on Arizona in the Game 1 of the Super Regional. But yes, Michael Jordan, LeBron. I mean, who is your GOAT?
I don't do it.
No,
I will not even.
Who's better?
I will not even enter into the conversation. I refuse to do it.
Okay.
I will never have that conversation.
I'll ask you this then.
Okay.
Who's the next best player after those two?
Oh man, now you just open it wide. You open it up.
Who's
See,
who is the third best player?
I don't even think about that, to be honest with you. If you think it's Kobe, that's great. If you think it's Wilt, that's great. If you think it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, great. You're entitled to your own opinion, but I don't get into that. That's just my take on that.
Well, I don't know. I'd say Kobe's probably third best, but
that's fine. I'm not gonna say you're wrong.
Yeah, I could say LeBron's the better basketball player, athlete and all that, but Jordan's the better winner.
We'll come back and wrap up the hour. Fire us up, text the hour 803-404-6100 on the halftime show in the game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler, Jack, Captain Dave along with you for a few more minutes before we hand things over to Jay and Elijah with the post-game show to take you through the rest of your Friday. It is time for your Firehouse Subs text of the hour at 803-404-6100. People have been loving this theme of things that you hate in movies that bother you. Nameless text says, any movie with an action sequence where tons of people are fighting in the background, i.e. Patriot, Braveheart, etc. I hate any time I see the extras in a battle scene that aren't even trying. In Kill Bill scene against the Crazy 88s, some of the extras ninjas aren't even waving their sword when she turns her back. So the background people not getting into it as much as they should have, I guess, is the concern here.
Yeah, that's the one thing you always run into when you have a movie that, especially an action movie that requires a ton of extras and big scene and all that. I mean, you're focused on the main characters, but you'll get those occasional shots that cut over to the extras just doing whatever they're doing.
Off of that, the thing like, okay, action movie, hero is now surrounded by 8 different people that are trying to attack him, and they take their turn. Like, all right, one guy comes, oh, he got knocked over. One comes, oh, he got, his head split. The other guy, oh, he got his leg broke. Like, why don't they all just jump on him at once?
Because that would be too simple.
It would be too simple, but it's like, oh, no, he's beating that guy up. Oh, we got that guy, too. Better wait my turn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, no, jump on him. You're all together.
Exactly.
You outnumber them.
See, I just don't get it. I think I don't know. It's just part of how cinema works, I guess.
I guess, too, there's almost a charm to it. A cheesiness. Like, especially, like, if you watch, like, old, like, karate movies and stuff. You see those kind of things, like, all right, they're just going to be in a line, and he's just going to take them one after the other, after the other, after the other. Like, there's a charm to it, I guess, that you're like, it's cheesy, but we're having fun.
And you don't necessarily know what you're going up against. Like, I think of, like, Karate Kid, the original one, for instance, when all the high school kids are fighting Mr. Miyagi, and it's one after the other getting beat up when he's a little guy. You could just all just go on him at once.
Also, like in high school movies, right? Like teen movies or whatever, the way they portray bullies of like just like beating up nerds, shoving them in lockers and stuff like that. That doesn't happen.
No,
like,
that's not how it works.
People get picked on, but I think they go overboard with like, all right, he's on the football team. He's going to go beat up the chess club now. Like, no, they just stay away from each other. Like, that doesn't really happen, I don't think.
No. It's like, and it's the biggest guy too.
By the way, what high schools have lockers big enough to fit people in? Because my high school certainly didn't have lockers that big.
Did you guys even use lockers in high school?
Barely. I would go, for one, mine was on the other end of the school.
Exactly.
And I had time to go to it like once a day. And I think I would just swap out the books from the first half of the day to last half of the day. And that was it. I might keep like a jacket in there. But it wasn't like I wasn't living at the thing. You know what I mean?
Like we had lockers, like they were there, but we never even got them, never used them. They were just there for looks, I guess. But I don't know, like middle school used lockers, but I mean.
Yeah, and again, went to like once a day. Like in these movies, they're hanging out for 20 minutes at their lockers between classes. What is this?
Like,
no.
Don't you have to get from.
We had 5 minutes. And most of the time you're running because your next class is on the other side of the school. Ridiculous.
But it's that charm. It's that, especially those 80s movies like Breakfast Club and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. But it's still cheesy.
Yes.
All right, Jack. Appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for holding down the fort with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming up next, it's post-game show with Jay and Elijah. We'll be back on Monday here on The Game.